Hello everyone and welcome to NLTI. Today we are here meeting again to continue our series on understanding how do you have to prepare legal reasoning for your CLAT preparation. I really hope that you're preparing well and you are studying hard and you're working hard to do well in your CLAT exam. So the exam is now officially 6 months away, and I hope that you have the right sort of idea of how things have to be proceeded. To help you with the same, today we are here to discuss some really important concept under the constitutional law, which is the union executive, right? Now, why it is important? Because it has some really important constitutional bodies and machineries that have been discussed in detail, which are extremely important for you to understand. It is important for you to understand it from the constitutional law perspective for sure, but also it is going to help you to understand it from the perspective of Indian polity. So now, without any further delay, let us get started about what we have in store for today. So union executive, as you know, the government has to work through its three organs. Those three organs are legislature, executive, and judiciary. We know that okay, legislature is responsible to make laws, executive is responsible to actually implement and execute the laws, and judiciary is responsible to protect the rights of citizens and to provide justice to the citizens and to also protect the laws. So now the legislature is going to comprise of parliament, which is going to be your lawmaking body. Judiciary is going to comprise of courts, which includes high courts and Supreme Court of India. But what exactly is the union executive about? What all things are actually part of the executive? That is something which is extremely important for us to understand. So to help you out with the same, we are back here in this class. So without any further delay, let's get started. So in union executive, first of all, executive is responsible to implement and execute the laws that the parliament is going to make. All right. The job of the parliament ends when the laws are made, but how it has to be applied at ground level, how it has to be made applicable, and how awareness around the same has to be spread in the common public is something which the executive has to ensure. That is why we have this union executive. Now, in union executive, at the top, the most important, highest constitutional body that we have is the President of India, and the provisions around the provisions around the President of India in the Constitution has been given under Article 52 and Article 53. Article 52 says something really simple and really important. It says that there shall be a president of India. That means there has to be a president of India for sure. It is a constitutional mandate, right, given to us under Article 52. So there can never be any situation in the country where there is no president. Okay, it doesn't matter whatsoever can happen, but the president shall always be there. Presidents can change for sure, but there is always going to be a person who's going to be president of India. Secondly, it says that the executive power of the union is going to vest in the president. So, the highest possible executive body is going to be the president. All the functions that an executive can perform, maximum power is going to be with the president of India, and he can exercise his executive powers either directly or through the officers that are under him. Now, who all are these officers? That is something very interesting for us to understand, and we'll get there shortly. So now, yeah, something really interesting is that the President of India is merely the constitutional head and not the real head. Right? So, what does that mean? It means that every executive action that has to be carried out, it shall be done in the name of the president, and it's going to be the president's signature that is going to matter the most, that is going to stand. But the real powers, the actual powers, are going to be with the Council of Ministers and the Prime Minister. We are going to understand about the same in detail, but simple for us to remember and understand that the president is merely the constitutional or the nominal head, not the real head. Okay. All right. Proceeding ahead, something interesting and important for us to understand that how the highest executive body of the country, the president, is actually elected. The provisions around the same has been given to us under Article 54 and Article 55. First things first, It says that the president of the country will be elected. He shall be an elected head. Now, who is going to elect the president is something very interesting to understand. So now it says the elected MPs and elected MLAs. Okay, word that you have to actually note down here is the word elected. So now, if you know that in Rajya Sabha, we also have some nominated members. Now, the president itself has the power to nominate those 12 members, right? But those 12 members cannot participate in the election or in the voting of a president. For the same, only elected members means people who have actually won elections, only they can vote to decide who is going to be the president of India. And they're going to participate in this system. And every MLA has a different value of vote, and it is every MLA and every MP has different value of their votes, and it is dependent on the population of their country. Okay, so it's the electoral college, which means the MPs and MLAs, which are elected MPs and MLAs, only they can vote and select who is going to be the president of India. Then, who can actually become the president? Okay, this is something which is given to us under Article 58. The qualifications. Can I, we can also become presidents. If you want to understand it a little better, let's go through this. It says that someone who, first of all, is a citizen of India, right? He can be a president. He should at least be of 35 years. And number three, he should be eligible for election to the Lok Sabha. And number four, he should not be holding any office of profit under the government, which means that he should not be a government employee. If any government employee wants to become a president, he first of all has to resign from his government office that he is holding, and then he can contest the elections. Otherwise, he cannot. At the same time, he cannot hold two government positions. Okay. So he has to resign from his current government position and then has to apply for then can apply for the elections, can contest elections. Once the president is appointed, he is appointed for 5 years, right? So now the tenure of the president is going to be 5 years, and after 5 years, the tenure is completed. He can again participate in the election, again can contest elections, but otherwise the tenure for once is going to be 5 years only, right? Also, like I've already mentioned, that there is a process of re-election. The constitution allows re-election, and if the president wants to um, stand in elections or contest elections again, he or she can do the same. The constitution does not stop it. However, in the history of India, only Dr. Rajendra Prasad has been elected as the president twice. Otherwise, this is not something which is usually followed. Okay, now proceeding ahead, something very, very important is the process of impeachment. Impeachment means how the president of India has to be removed. We are not talking about his retirement here. We're not talking about his death or any vacation that he is on. We're talking about him not obeying the constitution and then being removed from his position. Basically, this is about terminating the president from his position. So, removal of president, the process of removal of president is known as impeachment, and it is given to us under Article 61 of the Indian Constitution. Now, what does that say? First thing is that it mentions clearly that the only ground for impeachment is going to be violation of the Constitution. So, if anything is done by the president which is against the Constitution, then he can be impeached. Okay. Secondly, the process. What is the process for the same? First things first, the initiation. Initiation means to start the process, right? Now, to start the process, what has to be done? A motion or a resolution has to be started by either house of the parliament, either Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. Either house can actually start this resolution, and to even start this resolution, they will need 1/4 majority. At least 1/4 of the total member of the house should agree that yes, we want to start this process. Otherwise, the process cannot even get started. So, just to start the process, one-fourth of the total member should sign the proposal. And once the proposal is signed, then a huge, an overall discussion shall be done on the same, and then voting has to be done. And for voting, at least two-thirds of the total membership. So, which means around 66% votes. If 66% members, two-thirds of the members, they agree that we want to remove the president, they are going to vote in the favor of removal. Once one house who has initiated the process has given two-third majority, then the resolution will be passed to the next house, and the next house also after discussion has to do voting and should get at least two-thirds of the majority. After it all has been done, then the president will be removed. Now this is a process which the constitution has given. Interesting thing is that in the history of independent India, we have never used this process even for once. So, never in the history of independent India, a president has been removed, right? And but still, the constitution, it gives you the process. The constitution, it has this entire process. So, there is, if ever there is a situation where the president violates the constitution, then he can be removed. Okay, now let's proceed ahead. Important, what are the powers of the president? Okay, so now in the beginning I mentioned this thing that the president is an executive body, right? He is an executive. Executive means that he has to implement and execute laws. So yes, he has some executive actions, but he also has some legislative, which means law making actions, and he also has some judicial, which means law protecting actions. Now what all these actions and powers are, let's understand. Let's start with the executive powers that the president has. So, first of all, the president is responsible for appointments. Appointments for all sort of constitutional bodies that are there, including the prime minister, governor, judges of Supreme Court and High Court, Comptroller and Auditor General of India, Attorney General of India, and other high constitutional functionaries. All of them are actually appointed by the president itself, right? Apart from that, any executive action that the central government has to take, it has to do it in the name, under the name of the president. It's the president's name and signature that is going to be the final stamp. All right. Other than that, it's not applicable. Secondly, let's understand the legislative power. Now, what is legislative powers? Legislative powers basically means law-making powers, okay? So now we say that there are some legislative powers which the president has. So the president can also make some laws, but he's not part of the legislature. Then how is he even making laws? This is something which is very interesting and very important to understand. So, there is something called an ordinance. Okay, ordinance is a temporary law which is being made by the president. Now, why is the president even making the temporary laws? Let us understand it. So, primary job of making law is with the primary responsibility of making laws is with the parliament. Parliament, it makes laws when it is in session, right? When it is in session, then bills are proposed, votings are done, discussions and debates are done, then voting happens, and you send the bill to another house, and then you send it to the president, and then when the president gives assent, it becomes a law. But now, when the parliament is not in session, and also let me tell you this thing, the parliament is not going to be in session all the time, right? In fact, the constitution itself says that there should not be more than 6 months gap between two parliamentary sessions, right? So the parliament is not always in session. For months it is not there, it's not in session. So now let us assume that in January the parliament was in session, and after that till May parliament was not in session. Now in May parliament was in session, but now from February to April, if there is any dire need, any urgent need of any law or rule, so are we going to wait till May for the parliament to sit back again and discuss things and then make a law? No, that's not how things work. In this case, the president has the power to make laws, because if you remember Article 52, there will always be a president of India. So even when the parliament is not working, the president still has to work. Okay. So when the parliament is not in session, during that time, the president can make temporary laws. Okay. Now, those temporary laws are called ordinances. Those ordinances are applicable as if they are real laws till the time the parliament comes in session again. Once the parliament comes in session and it decides that we do not further want to continue this ordinance, then the ordinance will not be continued. If the parliament says that, okay, we want to make this a full-fledged law, then this ordinance will convert into a full-fledged law. But here, the power to make these ordinances is with the president and the governor at the state level. Okay. So when at union level, it's with it's with the president. Then you have judicial powers. Okay. Judicial powers, judicial powers here basically means to give justice. So yes, there the governor and the president, they also have some judicial powers, but they do not have the power to punish someone. They have the power to pardon, to forgive, to probably reduce the punishment. They cannot give more punishment, but they can reduce the existing punishment. They have the pardoning power, right? And it is given to us under Article 72 of the Indian Constitution. And now, what all these powers are, let us understand the same in detail. So, under the president's pardoning power, yeah, under the president's pardoning power, first power it has is to pardon, which means complete absolution, which means that you have completely forgiven the culprit. Now the culprit who was otherwise supposed to serve a sentence of maybe 5 years or 10 years. Now he's completely free. He does not have to serve even one day in the jail. Secondly, he does not even have to pay any sort of crime. So it's basically every charge is disposed of. It's equivalent to acquittal. That's pardon. Second is commute. Commute means when you substitute the punishment with some other form of punishment, with a lesser form of punishment. For example, someone was punished with death penalty. Now, using the power of commute, the president can convert death penalty into life imprisonment. That's with the president. That's the power with the president. Third is remission, right? Where the president has the power to reduce the quantum of punishment. If someone, let's say, was punished, someone who had to serve an imprisonment of 20 years maybe, now by using the power of remission, the president has reduced it to maybe 10 years or 5 years. The nature of imprisonment remains, the nature of punishment remains the same, right? But the quantum, it decreases. That's called remission. And fourth is respite, where there is reduction in the imprisonment due to some specific reason, like pregnancy or illness, anything of that sort. There is a special reason, then there is respite being used. And reprieve. Reprieve means temporary stay on execution. Execution means death penalty and hanging till death. So rather than executing the person, you temporarily pause it, you delay it, right? The person can seek the pardon of reprieve. So for some time, the execution will be delayed, right? So yes, that is there. There is pardon power with the president. Then we have the vice president of India. Okay, the same has been discussed under Articles 63 and 64. Now it is a lot of times it is believed, and which is a huge misconception, that vice president is actually a part of executive, which is not true. Why? I'll explain it to you. It is because it is said that the vice president is going to be an ex officio chairman of Rajya Sabha. What does that mean? Ex officio means that just because he's holding the office of vice president, just because he's vice president, automatically he will also become chairman of Rajya Sabha. So if there is this person A who, now let's say there is this person A who is just appointed as the vice president. Now just because he is the vice president, automatically he will also become the chairman of Rajya Sabha. Now let's say there's a woman who marries a man. Now just because she is married to this man, she will automatically become daughter-in-law of his parents, of her husband's parents, right? So same way, that's her ex officio being daughter-in-law to those people. Same way, just because one person was holding this office of vice president, automatically he will also become the chairman of Rajya Sabha, right? So now Rajya Sabha is part of the parliament. It's part of the legislature, and the vice president has absolutely no executive duties to perform, but he is the chairman of Rajya Sabha. That's why vice president is part of the legislative organ and not the executive. Okay. Otherwise, constitutionally, he is going to be second highest post in India as per the constitution, and he is the chairman. So his role is legislative in nature and his role is not executive. Now, for election of the vice president, only the members of both houses, both nominated and elected, Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha members, only they vote for it, and both nominated and elected members, they vote for the same. The tenure is going to be 5 years. Yeah, he's elected for 5 years, just like the president. And whenever the position of president is vacant, or if he is not available to serve duties, if he's sick or any other reason, in that case, the vice president becomes the president, and in that case, the vice president temporarily serves the duties of the president. Okay, all right. And like I've already mentioned, he does not have any role in the executive branch. His role is predominantly legislative in nature. Okay, now coming to the most important thing, who is the real executive then? The real executive at the union level, at the central level, is the Council of Ministers. The Council of Ministers, which is headed by the Prime Minister. Now, what is the Council of Ministers? Let's understand. So now if you know that there is something called Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, which together makes parliament. So you are directly involved in electing members of Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. And those people becomes your MPs, member of parliaments. Now, in in your Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, there are going to be people who will be belonging to the ruling party, and then there is going to be an opposition as well. Whosoever has maximum seats in the Lok Sabha, right, will form the government, will be the ruling party, and whosoever has less votes, less seats, will become the opposition. That's how it is. But the parliament has both um, ruling party and and your opposition, right? So now together they are responsible to make laws. So the legislature organ is going to have both opposition and the ruling party. But we said something called the Council of Ministers. Now among these people who are ruling, who have made the government, there are going to be some specific people who will be leading some ministries. The way there is Amit Shah leading Home Ministry, there is Rajnath Singh leading Defense Ministry, there is Nirmala Sitharaman leading Finance Ministry, right? So there are, this way we have a lot of ministries. There is educational ministries there, railway ministries there, textile ministries there, transport and highway ministries there. So for to lead all these ministries, there are going to be some specific people who will be selected from the ruling party, right? Those MPs who are part of the ruling party, among those people, these leaders, these ministers will be selected, and together they all make something called a council of ministers, right? So now the real executive powers are with the council of ministers, and the leader of this council of minister is known as your prime minister. So it is said that the president is the nominal executive, and the president has to work on the aid and advice of the prime minister and the council of ministers. Okay. Now, how does council of minister work as an executive? Let us understand. Council of minister is part of the parliament. It's part of it's part of the parliament. So it's basically part of the legislature. But the legislature will make laws. But to implement it at ground level, it's going to be the responsibility of these ministries through their through their government employees that are working under them. For example, now let's say the government has made a law that um, has made some tax law, has made some laws around tax, maybe income tax. Now they have made the law. Now if we have to implement the law at ground level, for the same we will need some people, right? So we have this ministry, we have this finance ministry. Finance ministry under its leadership has made an income tax department. Now under this income tax department, there are people, Indian revenue officers and other, all your civil servants and bureaucrats, all of these people are working for the income tax department and for other departments as well. So now for so there are these government employees, there are these civil servants and bureaucrats who are working under the Income Tax Act, under the Income Tax Department, and they are directly responsible to collect income tax from the citizens. So now the parliament made the law, right? The parliament made the law. The ministry established a body or an organization who will be implementing it at the ground level. So now the ministry um, established the income tax department. Income tax department has several government employees and government officials, and those several government employees and government officials will work at the ground level and will collect taxes from those people, right? So now implementation of the law or execution of the law at the ground level with the citizens directly is done by the executive through the government employees that are there, through your IAS officers, IRS officers, IPS officers, all of them. But all of them are answerable to the ministries, and ministry is answerable to the parliament, right? So this council of ministers that we have is part of the executive because they are making plan of actions or how the law has to be implemented at the ground level. So now this is something which is very interesting because our chief executive is also part of the parliament. So legislature and executive in that way are linked with each other. And the prime minister is going to act as the head of the council of ministers, right? And real powers is always going to be with the council of ministers. So the job of prime minister is to act as a bridge between the president and the council of ministers. Any decision that the president has taken towards the council of ministers, it has to travel through the prime minister. Any decision that the council of minister has taken for better implementation of laws has to travel to the president through the prime minister. Okay, so yes, president is going to be your nominal or constitutional head. PM is going to be your real executive that is there. Yeah. Now, there is one very interesting case law, Shamsher Singh versus State of Punjab, where it was held that the president and the governor are merely the constitutional head and they must, it's mandatory for them to act on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers, right? Except when the constitution expressly provides the otherwise, right? So it is mandatory for them to follow what all the Council of Ministers is saying, to work and function as per the suggestions or aid and advice of the Council of Ministers, right? And yes, this also established that there is parliamentary democracy in India, which means that the parliament has a lot of powers. We are not a presidential form of government, unlike US, where the president has maximum powers. We are parliamentary democracy, where the parliament has more powers. Why? Because the parliament is something which is responsible to make laws, and also a part of the parliament, which is your council of ministers or your cabinet, they are responsible to actually execute the laws at the ground level. Okay, so this is the union executive, right? So if we have three organs, this was one organ on which the constitution, on which the entire government of the country has to function with. There are two more organs. We are going to understand about the same in detail in the subsequent sessions. Till then, keep on preparing. If you have any questions, you can quickly put the questions. I'll just quickly check if there are um, any other questions. All right. Okay. So we're going to meet in our next sessions, where we are going to discuss about legislature and judiciary, and subsequently in our further sessions we are going to discuss all the other topics as well. So this was my time with you. Thank you so much everyone for joining. I'll see you all on next Friday now. Bye everyone, have a great weekend ahead.